Halito Greetings. Welcome to another video. In my last video, I realized that I overused the term hijacking our legacy. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about the idea or notion of Africa hijacking our American legacy. What are you talking about? What do you mean? Please explain. Well, I like images, and I think, we are visual people generally. So I want to start off with an image. Okay? That is the Holy Family. That is the first Trinity that the Catholic Church renamed, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Okay, so why I chose this image to start off with uh, is because in the background there you'll see that this artist, uh, very interestingly, he has America at the top left and he has Africa at the top right. So this image, what it depicts to me and what it says to me is that there's one legacy, that one in the middle, and there's two continents of melanated people. It could be Jacob and Esau that are on the down low, uh, fighting for that legacy. hmm if you watched my previous videos, it is in my estimation, and from what I've looked at, pardon the noise, that Africa gave up the legacy. Uh, we talk about an ancient, I want to say dynasty, that was expelled from America, where they raise up an Egypt in Africa. I believe this was the 18th dynasty, where we have the first monotheist that we're told about, which is Akhenaten. He would have been of the expelled group that were cast out of ancient Egypt, which was in the Americas. So, truly, we could say the the priesthood that was cast out of America, they go to Africa, where they began their monotheism. So what I'm saying is they gave up the legacy. They wanted to build it. They wanted to build a new legacy uh, under monotheism. There was a war, as we learned from, Horace Butler. There's a war that sends this monotheistic group to Africa, where they begin to work on their monotheism. So it is my humble opinion that Africa gave up its right to this legacy. And you can see that is Osar, Aset, and Heru, the Holy Trinity. Those would be their original names, as we are told. Uh, the Greeks called them Osar. I'm sorry. They called Osar Osiris. They called Aset Isis. And they called Heru Horus. Heru is the baby in her arms. This would have been your first immaculate conception, because in the mythology, in the cosmology, uh, the husband, Osar, was murdered by his jealous brother, Set. So at the time of his murder, the story says he did not have an heir. Aset, or Isis, she finds all the dismembered parts of her husband's murdered body, and she is able to conceive a child. That is where your immaculate conception came from, okay? Like I said in my last video, how are you going to demonize the original as demonic, and yet you accept it when it's done with a Greek face, and where Heru would basically be the Christ figure, Heru is being erased and replaced, as well as his father. They're actually being melded into one in the monotheistic tradition. Okay, so I just want you to get a visual of how a legacy, what it looks like. There's one legacy and two nations, just like in the Jacob and Esau story. This would be the two nations that they're talking about and fictionalizing in the Greek/Hebrew scriptures. America and Africa. I said in one of my two videos, in one of my previous videos, that this is the war, the silent war that's going on in the world. All the other players are basically coming in under Africa. How are they coming in under Africa? Well, Africa is taking the role that she is the first civilization. So therefore, all the other nations ride on her being the first civilization, which also explains why the hijack is so very crucial, so very important. We can't have America being found out as coming before Africa, because then the whole house of cards begins to tumble. When people learn that those Negroes, those people you call Negroes, their ancestors are the ones who brought you civilization. Our brother Africa, or our sister Africa, does not want you to know that. So she is taking your legacy. That is the hijack that I keep talking about. And you're wondering, what legacy is he talking about? Why does he keep saying that Africa is hijacking our legacy? Just, there's the visual. There's one legacy, two brothers fighting for that legacy. And just looking at the pyramids there, because the biggest one should be is in the Americas. It is in the Americas, but he just has the three in the background there, with the biggest one right behind the Holy Family. That is your Holy Family. Okay? These were melanated American deities. Africa does not want you to know that, because it rips apart her lies. As we saw in the last video, she is the largest regional group in the United Nations. Those are all her people that are against the American Indian. Now, they're not doing it intentionally. The ringleader would be African leaders. These would be basically the high level holy men, that ilk, the political, the leaders. It's never the little man. Whether we're talking about Great Britain or we're talking about Africa, remember, Great Britain is a child of Africa. I mean what I say when I say Africa is the brother, Africa is the sister. Well, in the monotheistic tradition, it's a brother that is hijacking your American legacy. Also, we're called African American. Now, African don't know Africa, and Africans don't know anything about that hyphen. It's a big misnomer, and even Africans don't quite know what we're talking about. Her leaders do. Africa does not. But yeah, so I guess I will let that image sit with you. You know, that is what I mean when I talk about our American legacy being hijacked by who? Africa. Now, as I always say, we are not looking for any kind of bloody interaction. This is all about the truth coming out. That's all it is. And really, the problem would be solved once we, as Americans, got on board and picked up our legacy. What we're doing is living in the legacy that Africa has provided for us. That's why it's not working for us. That is why we're not one of the 54 African nations, nor are we part of the United States nations in the United Nations regional groups. As we saw, United States is a special case in the United, where she is not a member of any specific group, but she does come in with Western Europe and others. So what I was saying is, obviously, that is not talking anything about melanated people, you know, as a nation. Yet we have the biggest regional group is a melanated nation called Africa. And the way I see it, when you read what the United Nations is about, it would cover issues of the humanities and human rights. And if anyone in the United Nations is witness to the several instances of what do we call it? The accidental murders by the authorities, well, I would think the United Nations might have something to say about that. That's just the way I think. It's happened enough, and there's been enough. If anyone watches TV or seen it, even on YouTube, we see the BLM movement. What does the United Nations have to say when they see people all over the world talking about Black Lives Matter? Well, if the UN can't get involved because they don't recognize blacks, which is a fair argument, maybe they could rectify the entire situation by talking about, wait a minute, guys, we see you want to help these people you calling black. How about let's start by giving them a nationality, because there's no such thing as a black country in the UN. There's no Blacklandia that has a flag that we can have as part of the United Nations. Black is simply not a nationality, nor are the other misnomers. Now, if we go in with indigenous, guess what? Now we pique the interest of the United Nations, because the United Nations does have something to say about the rights of indigenous people. It has no protections, no documents for the rights of black people. I can't keep getting my air quotes out of focus. I want them to be very centered. No protection for black things in the United Nations. And I showed you the document. Here it is. You see, there's nothing like this for blacks. There's nothing like this for coloreds. There's nothing like this for Negroes. There's nothing like this for even African Americans. African American is a huge, very misleading, very deceptive misnomer. Get it in your head, please. This has to stop. This is what we are doing to ourselves. That label that we have taken on, a caste system label, is the means by which we are treated as third-class citizens. I'm not going to even say second class. We probably less than third class, okay? So we have to get it in our heads. We've been fighting for black life for a very long time. Is it getting us anywhere? No. Why isn't it getting us anywhere? Because no one on earth, no politically recognized group knows nothing about black people, black things, Blacklandia, Blacktopia, whatever. It does not exist. Okay? This exists. Call yourself indigenous because that is what you are. That is why I'm wearing my feathers. That is why I'm wearing my feathers. Okay? I'm showing you. Okay? I have nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be embarrassed about when I know who the first Americans were. So, what we're going to do is look at that definition again. Who were the original Americans? We'll do it as much as the spirit moves, okay? So as much as I am moved by the spirit, I am going to, as I said, bang it on you, okay? American. We're going to do this as much as needed, maybe in every video. I decided if I'm going to do any more videos, I need to open with this, okay? This will explain why I'm wearing my feather. Or if I, in as much as I wear my feather, or my feathers. Let's read it together. I pretty much have memorized it, but let's read it together and get it right. American. Okay? That is a noun. It's a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans. But now the term American is applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. Huh? So you're not going to recognize me as the copper-colored you found here because now I'm calling myself black. Of course, that was encouraged by your system. You created that system because that's what that's a caste system designation, right? Okay? So, again, American. Now, a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginal or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. What happened was those copper-colored Aboriginals, they've had their name changed like 4 or 5 times now because our system does not want to recognize us. They have a race of Indians that they prefer, that they call Native Americans. You see, anybody can be a Native American, but only the first people of the land can be called what they call Aboriginal. I don't particularly like that word, and I explained why. I think original does the job. The prefix ab means away from original. So if we put that in front of original, for me, what do you call it? Etymology wise, you're saying that I'm away from the originals. So we don't want to really mix up, use words that have multiple definitions. That is I've learned that that's one of the ways a colonizer catches us because they'll use a word like Aboriginal, right? Now, Aboriginal has conflicting meanings and definitions. So it can be either away from original, or we equate it with original. But you see, the word for original is original. Okay, so Aboriginal, I truly do not understand. What I think it's a trick of the colonizer. Okay, because what you want to talk about is the original people. Period. Original doesn't have the word original. It does not have conflicting definitions. Okay, like Aboriginal does. Look it up. Aboriginal has one definition going this way, another definition going that way, another definition going that way. Okay, original is very singular in its definition. So I'm not particularly happy with Aboriginal. Copper colored, well, that to me, that's just a term that shows who we are. We don't want to get into crayon colors, but I guess, that was a way to introduce us to crayon colors, because the colonizer knew that their job was to slowly, over time, change that copper to black. This is what they did. So now we have Europeans that are just called American, but they have to hyphenate, quote unquote, African people, what they are calling African. We're not African. And we have to bear the African hyphen American label when we were the Aboriginal people that you see right there, copper colored. They even they at one point they did call us colored, but they were slowly moving away from that, so we couldn't find out who we were. Okay, that was the point of that. And in my last video, I'm going to say it again, because we need to stop playing. We need to stop playing. This is real, okay? This is real. This is the first 1828, as you see at the top, version of the Webster's Dictionary. Now, this is documentation that serves to help us should we find ourselves in a court situation that, in my opinion, needs to happen. So what I was saying is, there any legal professionals who would take on a case like this, where we have the evidence, and it's just a matter of putting it together before it is erased. Okay? Because this means we were taken out of our proper persona, and we were basically genocided. See, this is an act of genocide, is what I'm saying. It is. It's paper genocide. And it seems like that's the main way that they get our Indian asses to denationalize ourselves. It's effed up on so many levels. It's effed up. I just want to hold that up there. We really need to, as they say, get into it. I'm going to ask any legal professionals out there to drop me a note. If you believe in what is good and what is right, that you would stand up for the American, what they call us, the Aboriginals, the original people of the land, and represent us in a class action. As I said before, our government, it's not that they don't want to give money to worthy causes, as they wanted to do with the Afghanis, which I wasn't too happy with that. I'll be honest with you. I'm not happy about them wanting to give $450,000 to each member of an Afghani family that is being smuggled in to the country. I wouldn't be happy about it as an American. because I don't see that kind of thing forthcoming to our people. But again, we're going to say it's because our government is waiting for us to stand up and tell them who we are, not be told who we are. Okay? It's not that hard. It's not even about money. So when we talk about an action, a court action, please be aware it doesn't have to be money. It's land, really, and it's credit. It's credit for some kind of compensation for this act of genocide. It was an act of genocide. Okay? Politically, paper. It's a paper genocide. And then you wonder why authorities get away with what they get away with. Well, they don't have to recognize, quote unquote, black people. Okay? Now, here's the thing, though. We have to tell them that we're not. It is assumed that because we always Black Lives Matter and black this and black that, what that looks like to our government is that we are aligning ourselves with a misnomer that they don't have to recognize. That's basically the choice that they see us as making. We got to stand up and say no. In fact, we're going to come up against those forces in a class action, hopefully, where we definitively say no. We didn't agree. We didn't knowingly agree to being called black. We did not know it meant that it disenfranchises. We're not even American because we're African American. Someone brilliantly pointed out that we are the only Americans, the American Indian, we are the only Americans that don't need a hyphen because this is our country. We're not from anywhere else. Everyone else can have a hyphen, European American, Asian American, and even actual Africans. They would be the real African Americans. But then they wouldn't even, technically that wouldn't be what they are. They would be, like I always say, Kenyan American, Algerian American, Egyptian American. It's a misnomer. You got to be specific with these things. The law is not playing with you. And it'll make assumptions unless you stand up and say that would be incorrect. And we have the right to do that. I honestly believe that our country is ready to do that. It is talking about reparations for African Americans. They're going to try to make y'all feel, that they're giving you some props. But the way I see it is, even if that happens, the American Indians still have to be dealt with. That wouldn't be our case. We wouldn't be in a case for African American reparations or descendants of African slaves. It's going to be very interesting to see how they provide evidence that you are African. It'll be very interesting to see. My guess is that it'll be a requirement for you to say you're African first. In other words, you're going to, like it always is, you're going to be the one given the gun, okay? And I'll just leave it at that. And the money's going to be, looking good. And a lot of us are going to say, oh, yeah, I'm African. For $400,000, I'll be African. And once again, you have effectively communicated to the system that you are a non-entity with a little bit of money. But without human rights or without unalienable rights or without indigenous rights, what use is the money? So just a cautionary word with this new talk about reparations. This is going to be where you, for the last time, I believe, put the nail in the coffin, the proverbial coffin, of calling yourself African for a paycheck. Okay? American Indians are not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. So I say all that to say is that now that America or the United States is looking to rectify uh, uh, the imagined wrongs of descendants of African slaves, we know as American Indians that our turn is next. You know, we'll probably be, the last ones. Uh, either way, either way, it's fine. Um, so we looked at how you have to be, a nation, and we talked about how you don't really have rights that the system have to honor when you are a black thing. So what I hope to do was quickly get a whiff of some codes you need to be aware of. Okay, we're going to read a little bit about this. You can do your own, research. Where is it? Okay. Okay. Okay, we're gonna read. Maybe we'll start here and go a little deeper. But I want to. I like the subject line. What it's saying. Okay, this is what being black basically means. It's a status where your rights are limited. Okay, so this is what the structure that is behind a black thing. Uh, as you know, you had to be given civil rights, but what you should have wanted was unalienable rights. So even with the civil rights, there were limits. Okay, that's part of the package. Limits. Okay, we can read. Under Johnson's Reconstruction policies, nearly all the southern states would enact their own black codes in 1865 and 1866. While the codes granted certain freedoms, you see, certain free, when you're free, it's not someone giving you some freedoms. It's you being entitled to all the freedoms that any human, God created individual is entitled to. Okay, so that's right there's a red flag. While the codes granted certain freedoms to African Americans, you see, they can limit you because you're a non-entity. So if you want to be here and call yourself African American or black, this is the kind of laws that you fall under. Okay, and yeah, you might think that these are not in effect, but I think a lot of us will be surprised of the books, like the statutes that have never gone away. Okay, well, look at how you're treated. You know, you have to basically beg for justice in the courts when you think that one of your black kinfolk have been unfairly dealt with. You have to beg for justice because it's not seen that you are entitled to those. We granted you certain freedoms to your African American asses, including the right to buy and own property, marry, make contracts. See, they won't allow you to make contracts, trust me, because that's the actual law that you're under, contractual law. So the contract of being black is, if you call yourself black, we get to treat you black, like you're black, okay? Not American. In the definition we saw, American is, now applied to the descendants of Europeans. And as I said before, those Europeans would have been black Europeans, okay? They would have been African. Europeans. We need to start to understand the relationship between Africa and Europe. We need to understand that Africa is mother. Daughter is only following mother, okay? Daughter learned from mother. Now, what mother does, as I always say, is she puts on her, her frock, her pitiful frock. She grabs a pot of some kind of mushy substance and eats it with her fingers in her rocking chair with her what do you want to call it when you have a head full of white ribbons, looking very jigabooish, and she rocks in her chair. Baby, mama love you, but mama, they done beat me up and took my money. I can't do nothing for you right now. But mama, you have 54 seats in the United Nations. You're the largest regional group. Oh, baby, don't be silly. That's not mama. That's those people that hurt mama. And they took over mama and they misrepresented mama because mama don't got no money. I'm poor. Look at me. Look at me. Look, send mama some money. You help mama help you. Then maybe when I get my belly a little bit full, half a tank maybe, I could, maybe welcome you home and tell the world that you're my children and show that you're my children. But right now, mama can't do nothing, baby. Mama can't do nothing. I'm almost through with this bowl of funny looking white stuff that look like grits, but who knows what that shit is. I don't want to eat it, but I have to because I'm just so poor, baby. Okay, whatever, lady. Whatever, lady, okay? Let's look at more of these black codes because we want to see that, no, it wasn't just in the South. I think this is let me see, is that it? Okay, let's see. The black codes, sometimes called black laws, were laws governing the conduct of African Americans. Free and freed blacks. Look how they use blacks and African American. See, they're not talking about you, but you're telling them that that's you. And they say, oh, yeah, this is the codes we have for you, okay? This is what you get. Limitations, not freedoms, limitations of freedoms. Benefits and privileges. Civil rights, not unalienable rights, okay? So in 1832, James Kent wrote that in the most of the United States, there is a distinction in respect to political privileges between free white persons and free colored persons. See, that colored is a reference to you once being copper colored. They took off your copper and replaced it with black. Okay, so there is a distinction in respect to political privileges between free white persons and free colored persons of African blood. Most of us do not have African blood. Just be real with it, okay? And in no part of the country do the latter, in point of fact, participate equally with the whites in the exercise of civil and political rights. Although black codes existed before the Civil War and many northern states had them, many northern states also. So this wasn't just in the Jim Crow South, okay? It's all over, okay? It was the southern U.S. states that codified such laws in everyday practice. Okay, so they were more real with it. They wasn't trying to play with you. They wasn't hiding. They put, See, what it's worse when they playing with you and got you thinking they're your friend. Okay, so I guess they're saying the North was sort of on a down low with it. The best known of them were passed in 1865 and 1866 by southern states after the American Civil War in order to restrict African Americans' freedom and to compel them to work for low wages. Okay. See, I'm still kind of stuck on that sentence. Although black codes existed before the Civil War and many northern states had them. So how do you have them and they're not codified? That will be, I guess, a trivial question. We have to do some trivial pursuit and find out how do you have laws that are not laws, but you have these codes. Okay. Suffice to say, again, you're being treated like less than a third class citizen, okay? When you were the original people of the land. So if this is happening to you, the United Nations should recognize that as an act of genocide, okay? I'm not playing when I say that. It's paper genocide, okay? And that, notice the use of the term African and black. And then we have to ask, again, I hate to keep involving our mother, our alleged mother, because she's not mine, because I know where she stands. I know her place in history. But you have to wonder if this were true and she knows that your freedoms are being limited, when was Africa going to say something about that? There's just this very hands-off Africa that fools are worshiping, never realizing that the love is not coming back at you. In this, what? Can't even call it codependent. Codependent sort of signifies two people in a relationship. But this is a whole one-way fantasy relationship that we're having with Africa. While she gets to sit there again in the rocking chair. Thank you, baby. Mama loves you too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But the love is not backed by anything. She don't even say that. She don't even say that, okay? Okay, here's what I was looking for. Okay, so we left off. Okay, go to the bottom. We'll continue. Since the colonial period, colonies and states had passed laws that discriminated against free blacks. In the South, these were generally included in slave codes. The goal was to suppress the influence of free blacks, particularly after slave rebellions, because of their potential influence on slaves. So they didn't want the free slaves to start influencing the slaves. Isn't that odd that, slavery is abolished or whatever? Or what would that have been after slavery was abolished? I might have that wrong. But, they're still looking to... So no, it would have been because there's free slaves, right? So some of them were free and they still, their freedoms were limited, even though they were quote unquote free, because now it's about don't you dare inspire these other slaves that are not free. Okay, restrictions included prohibiting them from voting, although North Carolina had allowed this before 1831. Oh, interesting. My people's from North Carolina. Bearing arms, gathering in groups for worship, and learning to read and write. Think about that now. You don't even speak the language that your colonizers bringing, and that's it's like you're being denied learning a new language. Well, I guess what difference did it make? Because they still were coming for you. They were still coming for. Yeah, it was in their best interest, I guess, for you not to know how to read English, because all these English laws were doing this to you. Okay, the purpose of these laws was to preserve slavery in slave societies. Before the war, northern states that had prohibited, northern states that had prohibited slavery also enacted laws similar to the slave codes and the later black codes, you see? So it was up in the north. Connecticut, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and New York enacted laws to discourage free blacks from residing in those states. They was not playing with you African Americans and blacks. They was not playing with you. New York enacted laws to discourage free blacks from residing in those states because they want, so that means New York had some form of slavery, right? Because as we read, it was prohibiting their potential, freed slaves. You want to limit their potential to influence slaves. So if New York is in on this, well, I'm looking like New York had slaves too. Okay? Discouraged free blacks from residing in those states. They were denied equal political rights, including the right to vote, the right to attend public schools, and the right to equal treatment under the law. But we see that today, right? We know that we're not getting equal treatment under the law. So how much does calling yourself black today tie you back to this? But no one is going to tell you that, right? It's going to be on the book somewhere, but it was never, what do you call it, when you take away a law, repeal it, was it repealed? I guess is, or they just pile up new laws and never really, see, that's another thing, you pile up laws, but you don't really get rid of stuff like this. But we see evidence of this today, is my point. But what about those indigenous rights that we saw that the United Nations drafted up? Do they sound anything like this? Well, we'll take a look at some of them, okay? Okay, they were denied equal political rights, including the right to vote, the right to attend public schools, and the right to equal treatment under the law. Some of the northern states, those which had them, so they were repealed such laws around the same time that the Civil War ended and slavery was abolished by constitutional amendment. Constitutional amendment. So they're talking about the 14th Amendment, right? But as I said in my last video, did the 14th Amendment really do away with slavery? Well, we're going to look at that as well. Okay, I think I took a screenshot. What we're reading from. Actually, I should tell you what the last one we were reading from. I'm going to try to remember to link it, but I'll tell you what we were reading from after I read this. This is from a website called Constitutional Commando, and let's read what about the 14th Amendment citizen. So it was abolished, we thought, right? A federal citizen, also called a 14th Amendment citizen, a citizen of the United States, a U.S. citizen, a citizen of the District of Columbia. Do you remember what we said about the District of Columbia in the last video? Is it part of the United States, organic United States? Or is it a territory? And who does it belong to, that territory? Is it a crown corporation? Okay. So let's start again. A federal citizen called a 14th Amendment citizen, a citizen of the United States, a U.S. citizen, a citizen of the District of Columbia, has civil rights that are almost... Oh, so you mean the 14th Amendment didn't quite do it for me either? No, it didn't, because has civil rights, that U.S. citizen has civil rights that are almost equal to the natural rights that state citizens have. So you're telling me I have to be a state citizen and not just a general United States citizen? You mean I have to be specific? You mean like just like with the term African American, that's not specific enough. So it puts me in that weird gray area where I'm a target for all kinds of abuse in the caste system. Also, you're saying it's the same thing with a citizenship. I have to be specific. I have to put myself on that land. Also, you're saying that land is very important in how my rights are respected. Gotcha. Okay, so a U.S. citizen, a citizen of the District of Columbia, has civil rights that are almost is not good enough, people, equal to the natural rights that state citizens have. For the record, I am a state citizen. I have changed my status to a state citizen. Okay? I am a New Yorker. That is my nationality at this time. Okay? I'm also indigenous, so that's another part of the pie or whatever. I say almost because civil rights are created by Congress and can be taken away by Congress. Unalienable rights cannot be taken away. The rights of indigenous people, sort of by definition, would be unalienable, meaning you cannot mess with indigenous people, because that's their land. They're seen as attached to the land. Okay? When they unattach you from the land, you're going to be in for a roller coaster of ups and downs with mostly downs. And steep falls from, into reality. Okay? Okay. I say almost because civil rights are created by Congress and can be taken away by Congress. Federal citizens are subjects of Congress. Subjects. That is a key word. Do you want to be a subject? Doesn't that sound like you're under some kind of nobility? Subjects? Excuse me. Okay. Federal citizens are subjects of Congress under their protection as a resident of a state. So whereas the state you were born in, you should be a citizen of that state in order to maintain your, basically, what they call common rights, which are the highest that you can get if you're not indigenous. That would be the next level. See, I am indigenous, but we have not really had that dance yet in court, So the next best thing, is the way I see it, is to be a state citizen. Okay? So when you're a federal citizen, the state you are in, you're not seen as you're seen as a resident of that state. So in other words, you belong to the district, right? This is how I'm interpreting it. And you're only a resident in the state you're in because you really are under a federal district, So if you are a U.S. citizen and you live in New York, you're not a citizen of New York that you would be if you were a state citizen. You are just a resident in New York, like anyone else who's basically doesn't belong in New York. It's how I'm reading it, Okay? Okay. There is a corporate version of New York that is connected to this federal corporation. And when you hear, it's referred to as the state of New York. So when you hear them refer to the state of New York, that's a different type of New York that is a corporate version of the Land and Soil New York, which I believe the Land and Soil name for the land and soil New York is New York State. It has to be in that order. New York State with upper and lowercase letters and a lowercase state, I believe. Whereas State of New York is part of the corporation. It's like a franchise of the corporation. So it's a capital S in state, and probably I think it's New York is capitalized also, I believe. But that's how you can tell when something is a corporation versus whether it's common law or land soil jurisdiction. Okay, so civil rights are created by Congress and can be taken away by Congress. Federal citizens are subjects of Congress under their protection as a resident of a state, a person enfranchised to the federal government. So you're franchised to the federal government. The incorporated United States defined in Article 1, see, there's the definition that's going to tell you what the United States is. Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution, incorporated the United States defined in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution. So you look in the Constitution, and it's going to tell you that the United States is a corporation. The individual states may not deny to these persons any federal privileges or immunities. Well, the states is saying the states can deny them, but the Congress themselves can deny you. They're the ones that's deciding what you get as rights. They decide, okay? And when they feel like taking them away, they do that as well. So that is why you are a subject, because your freedoms are curtailed. Just like with the black codes, it's a limitation on freedoms that can be given and taken away. This specific class of citizen is a federal citizen under admiralty law, not common law. Admiralty law, international law, or the law of commerce, UCC law, dealing with contracts. So everything we do is based on a contract we make with the corporation, United States Corporation. So it's not about your constitutional rights. It's about what did you agree to in whatever contract you made that was expressed or not expressed or implied or cess decay, just by, you just acquiesce into a contract. It's not pretty, y'all. What I'm trying to say is you enter a contract when you allow yourself to be known as black. Okay? I am indigenous. I am doing this video as for educational purposes to other indigenous. What do you call it? What do you say? I forgot the word you use when you make a video. Okay. What do you call it? What's that word? Fair use. Fair use. Fair use. Okay. So you know what? I think I read enough. I'm going to link that website, and you can read it yourself, what we were just reading from. Then I'm going to, let's see, the website where I think I got the black codes from a few websites. Let me see if I can see what the name of the one we read from was. Okay, that might have been, I don't think I captured that. One of them, let me see. I'm gonna have to link it because I didn't capture what website I got the black codes from. One of them might have been Wikipedia, but I think there was another one that we looked at that was not Wikipedia. But going back to UN, because that's where we want to go next for a minute, because I spoke about the UN, but we didn't really talk about what it is they do. So let's look at what the United Nations does. Due to the powers vested in its charter and its unique international character, the United Nations can take action on the issues confronting humanity in the 21st century, including maintain international peace and security, protect human rights. That's where we kind of want to ask the United Nations, what do they have to say about the disproportionate killings of humans? Okay, so they or why those humans are being denationalized by calling themselves black. What the United Nations might say, I'm going to go out on a limb, and maybe their excuse is, you are agreeing to it. You know, you say you're black, you call yourself black, almost everywhere we look. That's why Black Lives Matter made such a splash, because that's their way of making sure that we still identify as black. That was a trap. It's a trap. We need to start calling our movements indigenous, okay?